Okay, it's a data type that stores variables in key value pairs. It stores variable in key value pairs. General syntax for the object data type is as follows. Let's say you have a user object like this, and maybe you have a user and the user's name is, let's say, Brains. Then we have another property, say, skin color. Okay, now this is how objects are being represented. The first value you have here is this one here is the variable that is storing the object. For now, we are using user as a variable to store the object. You can call it any name you want. You can call it person. If I change it to person, it still works. Anything you can call it. So we are storing objects. We now have a person object. So this is the variable you are using to store your object. Now, anything inside this curly brace are now the properties of your object properties. Now, the object property is divided into two. We have one, the key property, and we have the value property. The key property is anyone that appears before the column, while after the column you have the value. So we have key value. So the information is stored in key value pair. Like in this case now, you want to know this person, you want to know the name of the person, probably the color of the person, maybe the person's score and everything. So imagine you don't have object data type. How would you store that information? You have to now say maybe const person. No, I don't even imagine how you want to store it. So the object data type stores a collection. It stores the whole information about that particular object. Let's say you have let me go with car object. You have a car object. Now the name of the car is let me see Lexus. Maybe go for type or class. So we're getting everything about this particular car. Every information. Once they see the object provides the whole information about this particular car. Maybe you can write model, say 2022. Just like that. So you can store all this information in a variable. So the object provides you the opportunity to store everything in a variable instead of creating different variables. Imagine there were no objects. Maybe what would have done is you store const. You say car name. You say car name. You call it Lexus. You come again. You now say car class const, car class const. So you're taking more space. You're storing, but in what object does it just creates one address in your database, just one address, one small space, and that dumps everything inside of that space instead of now having multiple addresses that will be using up memory to store these things. So that is what the object does for us. Now the next thing is, how do you create an object? I've already done it here. This is how you create an object, exactly like this. There are two major methods in which objects can be created. The first one I did is this one that is what you're seeing on the screen. Creating an object in this format is called the object literal pattern. The object using the object literal pattern. How to create new objects. Let me see. Creating new objects. Creating new objects. Okay. So this pattern is called using object literal. using object. Okay, so this is what we did simply. And also in the case of arrays, when we did array, we said you can actually create a variable and there'll be nothing inside. So in this case, I can also do something like this: const, and I say an empty object. But remember, I can't reassign, I can't use const twice for a particular object. So this is still possible. But in this case, I have created an object called car, but it's empty. It doesn't have a property. It doesn't have any property inside. So this method, either you do it like this or you do it after this. You now start. Okay, let's go with the first pattern. Let's go with this line 402. So we've created an object. So this is how you create an object. One way of creating an object. Then another way of creating an object is using the object constructor. Don't worry, we learn about constructor using the object constructor. It's called the object constructor. Okay, so in this method, all we'll be doing is let's say we are creating an object called person object. So you just use the new keyword. The new keyword. You remember this new keyword when we're creating arrays too. So the same thing applies to object. So in this case, we have also created an empty object. So it's either you use object literal or use the object constructor. So in case you see somebody using it like this, it's also acceptable. But as we know, we like the easy way out. So most times we just go straight and create it this way. And you can even create it and populate it at once. So you can create and populate. You can create and later you start populating. Now, how do you populate? Let's say we didn't populate it here, and we want to now populate it after creating it. So how do you populate it? So we've created our car object. I will now want to assign a name to it. We want to assign a class or something. So in that case, we can go ahead and say, oh, okay, before we do that, okay, before we try to populate, oh, okay, fine, yeah, can go ahead. So we can now go and say car. There are two ways of, I will use the word populate and assessing values in an object. Let me first go with assessing values so that it will be easier for us to understand. Let's assume that we've created the object, we've populated it. We'll go back to how to populate it. If it's not populated, we'll do that again. So now, we want to now assess the values in our objects, assessing values in objects, assessing the properties of an object. Okay. So how do we assess? So we have this car object. I want to now assess the properties of an object. So in order to do that, we have two methods. We have the dot notation and we have the bracket notation. The dot notation is, as the name implies, it's just using dots. Dot notation, using dots. So all we need to do here is to say car dot name. So if I say car dot name, let me console log car dot name. Console dot log car dot name. So if I go ahead and console log car dot name, it just give me Lexus. So I'm assessing a particular property in my object. Now, what property am I assessing? I'm assessing the name property. So if I want to access the class property, I will do the same thing. This time around, I now say car.class. Car.class. Want to access the model property, you go and say car.model. So this is how you access the property of using the dot notation. Another way you can access the property is using the square, the bracket notation. The bracket notation. You see, I have dot notation, and here I have brackets notation. The bracket notation, as the name implies, is to use your squared brackets. Use your squared brackets, and you now call the property you want to access. Let me see, since we've accessed the name, let me now access model and say model. Okay. Model is not defined. Okay. very. Yep. Okay, so this is how you use the dot notation. As you can see what just happened. If you're using the dot notation, it means that your key will be in strings. Your key has to be in strings if you're using the dot notation, the bracket notation. But if you're using the squared notation, your keys don't have to be in string. So if you now put the key, it returns the value. So the value for model here is 2022. So if you put your string, it returns your value. Returns your value. So if it returns your value, so if I wanted to use the dots here, all I needed to do was remove or just the dot model, get the same thing. So I'm giving get online 419, I'm getting the same thing. So this is how you assess the properties of an object. This is how you assess the properties of an object. You call the object and you now either using your dot notation or your bracket notation to now assign, to now look for the key value pair. But this time you enter the value, you enter the key and it returns back the value. Because in most cases, what you've been using to work is the value. You are trying to maybe tell somebody that this car is called this. So of course you don't need name. All you need is Lexus. So you can say the Lexus car, just something like that. So this is how you assess the properties of your object. Now, how do you now populate? How do you now populate? Let me use the existing example that we have. Either you use it to populate or to replace. Now, in this case, I now want to add more properties to your car object. So if I go ahead and now say car dots, let's say we want to add warranty, car dots warranty, and go ahead and say 4 years. All right. So if I two ways, is that I go and say console log. I can actually console log my whole object. My object is called car. If I console log my whole object, so it will give me, this is what it will give me. And I have these properties that has class, model, name, and warranty. I have name, class, blah, 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 warranty. So we've added a new property. So likewise, if there were no properties before, also I wanted to demonstrate. So if there were no properties before, if this was empty, after line 421, 421, line 42, okay, sorry, I commented out everything. So let's say there were no properties before. On line 402, we declared it was empty. But now on line 421, we've now assigned a property to. So you can actually, so if you want to populate more properties, you just keep adding them like that, And so that is how you create an object, assess the property of an object, populate either adding to the object and the rest. And also there's also a method to delete from the object. If you want to delete from the object, all you need to do is to call, let's say I want to now delete this warranty. If after assigning it here, and I go ahead and now say delete dots car dots sorry, delete car dots warranty. All right. So if I go ahead and delete, so if I come back and console log this my car now, it will now return back to the empty object that I had initially because I've deleted that property called warranty. So that's why I see you have an empty object here. It's empty, nothing inside of it. So these are the small operations. Please, any question on objects? Hello? Are we still here?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, sir, we are.
Oh, Okay. Any questions so far on objects?
I have a question on
All right, go ahead.
hello.
I can hear you. Yeah, you can go ahead. I can hear you. Yeah, your line is breaking. I don't know if it's in my network or. Can you hear me? Hello.
Is it a string or a number?
Sorry, come again, please. I didn't get your question. I think the line was breaking. Hello, Felix. Please, can everybody hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Felix, you were asking a question.
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Okay. Felix, you were asking a question. I didn't get your question.
On line 403, the car object.
Okay.
I was asking if the model value, if it is a string or a number.
On line 403.
Yes, the model. Yes, the value of that model.
Okay. Yeah, you can use a number. Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out. I wanted to say object properties can also be numbers. Yeah, you can use a number. And it doesn't have to be string.
Okay.
It can also be numbers. Okay. So another thing. Yeah. Thank you for pointing out that question. Let me also add that. Object, you can also have object in an object. Let's say I want to now have this my car object I have. I want to now have let me see. What can I now say I want to have as an object? What can we use? Say we have warranty. We now want to have something like okay, do we have color here? Okay, engine. Okay, let me see car dot engine. Now the engine has many properties. So I want to now assign an object. So we have the chassis number. Just let me see if one more. You have what else? Chassis number. You have the engine type or just a type. Let's see, type. Okay. Now see the interesting thing we now have. So you see, I created the object, now put another object inside an object. So here now we now have, this is the object, it now has a class, it now has an engine. So this engine is now an object on its own, which I can open. So if I want to access, let me say I want to access the engine type, which is German. What I need to do here, I now have to come and console log, let's say car dot, if I do car dot engine, no, let me not remove that one. Let me just do another one. Okay, say, and now say console.log car.engine. Okay, so online, this is what we now have. Now I want to now access the chassis number. So after I do car.engine dot, please don't forget chassis. Because I didn't spell it correctly, right? Why is it saying undefined? Dot engine dot type. Okay, yeah, man, it was loading before. Okay. Okay, so now I'm accessing an element that is inside another object, inside another object. So this is how, so you go through the parents, go through the grandparents, the parents, and the child. It goes keep going like that until you get the elements you're looking for. The value you're looking for through its key, of course. So this is how you assign it. And you can also do this straightforward from instead of assigning it right here. I can also go ahead and add. I want to add an object to. What I just need to do is to call another object. Let me say I have chassis. Let me say I want to add what is it called again?
Tire.
Okay, tire. Okay, let me say tire. Then we'll now define. Okay, we'll now define brand. We'll now define brand. Let me just leave one inside. So you see, I have a car object that has a name, a class, now has tire inside. So if you go here and see my main object, it now has two objects inside. So there can be object, there can object inside object inside object. But you just have to know how to access the property you want to access. Like in this case now, I can go ahead and if I do car dots, I have car dot tire dot brand. Car dots. Okay, let me use this. The console.log. The car dot tire dot brand. Okay, so now I have the download. Okay, are we clear on this? Because our class will
Yes,
be
sir.
ending in less than 5 minutes, unless we have questions. So I would like us to stop here, and I want you to please go and look at these objects and how we use them, because we'll be working with them. We'll be looking at from next class. We'll be looking at most common methods, just as we did for arrays. We look at object methods too. So I think that will be what we look at for now. Start going to how to now display our things on our browser. I know that's what we're eager to do. But don't worry, those are simple things. All right, so any questions before our time clocks out? Okay. So please don't forget the type of data is a non-primitive data type, and this is how you assign. It's pretty straightforward though. So, okay, we didn't work on this. So the same thing applies. If you define it like this, it's the same thing. You can start populating it, but this time around, the name of the object is a person object. So you can put its height, its look, and everything, just like that. And if you want to access the properties, the same pattern. All right. So I hope we were clear with today's class. And yeah, I want to take that to be a yes. I want to assume everybody understood these objects.
Good.
Yes, sir.
All right. All right. So in the absence, I hope. Okay, in the absence of any further question, we'll end the class here today. And please, I want you to take a look at these things again. Look at them. Go to W3 Schools. Go to Mozilla Docs. Look at them. Review them, and make sure you understand them. And from next week, we'll now be dealing with the objects methods themselves. All right.
So is our meeting same time next week?
Yes, same time next week, 3 p.m. But meanwhile, we'll send the video. Okay, Aaron, please, you are in that WhatsApp group, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you can just drop your account, account number. Drop your account number, your email address, so that I can easily, when the video is out, you get an email prompts of the recorded video. All right.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, guys. See you next week, same time. Have a wonderful weekend ahead. The object.entries is, we said there are methods that return where there are methods you run and they return back either an array of your objects or an array of the keys of your object or the values. I remember we did object.value. We did object.value. Okay, so we did how to generate new objects. Okay, I can't find it here. I guess we didn't do object.value. Okay, let's go ahead and take those ones. So now in working with objects, just like we did with arrays, we will need objects. We may need to maybe go through elements of an object using the word, let me use the right word, iteration, means iterating, going through elements of an object, picking individual elements and doing something with those elements, probably returning something or changing the way the elements should look. And there are different ways we could accomplish this, just as we had loops in array. Objects by default are not really iterables by default, but there are ways we can manipulate them and make them and make it possible for us to iterate over them. Okay, before I go further, I'd like to say that I'd like to introduce for in loop. I don't know if I talked about for in loop the last time we had this session. For in loop, just as we had the for loop, we had the for each loop, we had the other loops. We also have a loop called the for in loop. The for in loop helps us to iterate over objects. It gives us the ability to iterate over objects. For example, let's start with this object that we have here. These are our objects, and let's iterate over these objects and you can see what we get. So let me see. Sorry, it's raining here. That's why you can hear that sound. All right, so the for in loop, it's called the for in loop. It gives us the ability to iterate over objects. Okay, VS Code already broadcast this for me. So basically, what it does is, just as we have, when we have the for loop, the for loop for arrays, where we have let this equal to this. So the for in loops gives us that same ability. It will pick the individual items of an object and now perform an iteration over them. So let me just simply, this is my object. I have a car object that has these properties inside them. So what I want to do now, I want to pick these objects and display them. Let me say display them one after the other. Now the way I do this is using my for in loop. It's called for in loop because of this for and this in here. Now, this is the syntax for writing it. This object is the name of the object that you just formed. In this case, I have a car object. I have a car object in this case. So I want to perform an iteration over this car object. Iteration simply means I want to pick I want to perform a function for individual elements, for individual properties of this object. So I have the name and the property called, the property that has the key name. I have the one that has the key class, the model, tire, and the rest of it. So this now I want to perform an iteration over them. So what I'll simply do, first of all, let me do console log and let's see what we get. Console.log, and I log in. Say, okay, let me just console.log the key. And let's see what we get. I don't know if I started my live server. No, I haven't. Sorry. Nice. Hope you can see hear me. The rain is not disturbing much, right? Hello, can you still hear me?
Your voice is clear, sir.
Okay, it's clear. All right, so I want to go over that object and I want to change my okay. I want to place it by the sides. Yeah. All right. Okay, see what we get here. It now performs an iteration over the keys of that my object. I have a name key, I have a class key, I have a model key, I have a tire key. So it performs an iteration that gives me the keys of this individual object. Let's say you don't need the key, but you need the value, because in most cases you work with the values, not the keys. So what I would rather now do here is, instead of just console locking the key, I'll now console lock the same car object, but this time around the key. You know what this means? If I want to get the value of an object using the bracket notation that we've discussed before, I want to get the value using the bracket notation. All I need to do is to pass in the key into the object name, and I'll get the corresponding value. So in this case, I'm getting the corresponding value, Lexus E-Series 2022. Then I get this one, which is an object embedded in an object. So this is how you iterate over an object using the for in loop. Now, there are other methods we can also use in iterating. Those methods, what they practically do is they convert this value, either the value or the key, into arrays. Why we convert them to arrays? As you know, we have so many methods. Just give me a sec. Let me show. All right. Sorry for that break in transmission. Now, why we prefer most times to convert objects into arrays is because we have so many methods we can use in looking through arrays. But for objects, we have very limited methods. One of them is for in. I think there is another one called for off. But in most cases, we always like to convert an object into an array so that we can now perform. We have the math method, we have the for each method, we have for loop. We have so many of them that we can use in performing iteration over arrays. So in most cases, what we rather do is we convert those methods. Also, as you can see, while I was using the for in loop, I had to now call the car object again. I call the car object again, and now passed the key in order to get the value. But there are other methods I can use to make this faster and to make this less complex. For example, I have the object.key. The object.key. These methods I'm going to be stating here. We have the object.key. Let me just object.key. We have object.value and object.entry. Object.entry. Now, these three methods, the first one, object.key, returns the key of any object in an array. The second one, object.value, returns the value of any object in an array. While the last one returns both the key and the value inside an array. It encloses them in a big array and returns them back to us. All right, let's go ahead now and see what we get. Let me call that object. Don't forget the name of the object is called car. If I say object.key, sorry, I say object.key, and I now pass the particular object I want to call on. Say car, object.key. Let's say points equally objects. Because I want to console it and see what I get. I go ahead and say console. If I do this, I'm actually calling on that particular object, that just the keys. Sorry, I made a mistake. So the object the keys. Okay? That is green diamond. So you can see it now wraps It now has the name, the value, the key of this object, name, this, and this. Let me just copy this down here so I don't have to be scrolling up and down. Okay. So what it now does, it now returns this. It now returns these keys in an array. It now returns these keys in an array. Name, class, model, and tire. As simple as it gets. Now, if I intend to now use this for any iteration, I can just say object key. You know, you can now apply any of the array iteration methods. Object.keys.map .map. Let's apply map, and I see key. I see key points. Let me remove this console flow. So you see what I now have here. So it's now displaying each of those names one after the other. So map method I discussed before, what it does, it collects the individual items you want to do something with, and does an operation with them. Let's say we want to do something better. Let's say we want to make all of them capital letter. Remember our to uppercase. Oh, did to uppercase. To uppercase. Let's see our result. Sorry, the method. Okay. So to uppercase now, and I've now changed all of them to capital letters. So what I'm simply saying is that this object.keys converts the key components of your object, the keys. That you have in an object property, you have the key and the value. It converts the key into an array such that you can now use it to do an operation somewhere else in your app. For example, all I wanted to do is to convert it to uppercases, and as simple as it gets, your object.key gives me that value. All I need to do is to store it in a value, call a map on it, and I get my results. Please, is this clear? Is this clear enough? Are we good to go?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, so let's move on. I guess
Sir.
on this. All right, so another one we're looking at is object.value. Let me just quickly object.value. I did object.keys. Object.value. So let's say we want to do the same thing on the value. The same thing, but this time around, let me change it to the object.value. And I come here, I say okay. The same thing. Then I want to now perform the same operation on my value. Okay. Go to the syntax error object. Okay, where is my error? Is it objects? Okay. Properties is not a function. Also does not be valid. Okay. So I'm getting the value here. That is line 458. Line 458 is correct. Okay. I have an object inside here. Okay, yeah, that's right. It doesn't work in, because as you can see, I have an object inside here. So if I'm saying I want to console log this, I want to change these values to uppercases. This to uppercase only applies to strings, it doesn't apply to objects. So that was why I threw an error when we did that. So let's just say you don't want to convert it, you just simply just want to console log it. There you go. I have my answer. Object values. Okay. So in case you want to use it for something, maybe you want to use the value of an object for an operation somewhere in app. This is what you simply do, and you get the values. So having understood that, we move into.
Hello, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
For the object of value, I'm
Yes.
noticing that we are not changing the keys in the brackets after the map.
Can you speak up loudly, because I've been struggling to hear you?
Okay, sorry. I'm saying that for the object of value, the keys in the brackets after the map and the console, we are still console key. I don't know. I thought it would change to value since we are looking for the values of the keys.
You mean on line 4, 5, 6?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, come again with the question. I need to hear you.
I'm asking, I'm just making an observation that we didn't change the keys, but we're actually looking for values.
Okay, on this line.
On line 4, yes, on line 4,
Line 461.
461, yes.
The map method, so I can, for map method, I can use anything here. I remember when we did the map method, what the map method simply do is, you take an array and now collect the individual items of that array, perform a function. I can change this to item. But you have to be consistent. Whatever you have, that's what you have here. I just use the word key. Let me change this so it doesn't confuse us. I can call this one, you can call it anything. You can call this string, you can call it anything. This is simply a map method. Remember I told you, remember when we did map method, I said map method receives a function. These are methods that accept functions and performs an operation on those functions and throw out something for you. What they basically do is, those are array methods that you can use to manipulate the individual values of your array. You remember we did something like that? We did for each, we did map, we did so many of them. I don't know if you still remember.
Maybe that's where my problem is. Maybe I've forgotten. I'm saying I'll go through that map method again because I think that's where I'm having issues. I think I've forgotten how the map method operates.
Okay, so just go back to check how the map method works. But simply what you do the map method is just a normal method. We have the push. You remember when we did push, we did pull, and the rest of them. We said there are methods that accept functions. The map was one of them. We also did the reduce method. I think for each method, they accept function and they carry out an operation on individual items of an array. Depending on what the functions wants. Like in this case, the function we are passing here, we're only telling the function to spill out, to change the individual elements of this array to uppercase and spill them out. So it takes a function. This function can be declared outside. Then remember, so we can declare this function outside and now call it inside the map method. Okay. Please just go back and check on array methods and stuff. These are very important things that we need to come back to. All right.
Thank you.
All right. So object.key, object.value. Let me go ahead and do object.entry. Please, why am I doing this again? Why do we have these methods again? These methods helps us to convert objects into arrays. Now they convert. One of them converts the the key property of an object. One of them converts the value property of an object. Another one converts both the key and the value property, which is the entries. And if I go ahead and console log, let me do, I have keys here. Let me just do everything here. I have keys, I have values, and I have entries. Okay. So if I go ahead and do this, and let me just do this. I now have dot entries. This is what I get. Dot entries now has both the key and the value pair in an array, key value pair in an array, then enclosed in a bigger array. Enclosed in a bigger array. So you can see that you can easily turn your objects into arrays using these three methods. Please note them. You can easily turn your object into arrays using those three methods. And the question is, why do we need to turn objects into arrays? We turn objects into arrays so that it can be easy for us to iterate over these properties and carry out run a function or carry out manipulation of these properties. So that is why we need to turn them into arrays. Please, is this understood? Are we clear on this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, let me go ahead and okay. So another thing I would like to look into is something called object destructuring. Also mentioned it when we did arrays. Object destructuring, and we also have array destructuring. So let me just write it here. Object destructuring. Okay. Now, what is simply object destructuring? The word destruction means to destroy or to disintegrate or to reduce into different bits. What am I trying to say? Imagine when we're trying to access the individual properties of this object. This our object. We said console log car.name. We do car.name. I'm sure you will know what you're supposed to get. So we do car.name. We are getting the name, which is 2022. Line 450. And I still have this here. That's why. Okay. So if we do car.name, I have Lexus and the rest of it. What if instead of doing it this way? Okay, this is simply what we are doing. Now I can now say const. I say car name equals car.name. I'm just saving the car.name in a variable called car name. Then I can go ahead and console log it here. I say car name. Okay, so let's say I want to use the name of the car to do something and perform an operation somewhere. I save it in a variable called car name and go ahead. If I want to do the same, if I want to get the class of the car, I have to go ahead and do the same thing and say, okay, this time around, I say car class, car class, car.class, okay, and I come here and say car class, okay. And I say issues. So the same thing, I can go ahead and continue to get these names. But what if there's a way I can make this very short? Instead of going ahead and writing the individual names one after the other, I can go ahead and make it this. What I need to do, in as much as I know the keys, the key properties of these car objects. I go ahead and say car, and inside here, I now outline all the keys. The first one is a name, comma. Next one is class. The next one is model, and the next is type. Okay, let me just call these three alone. And I say car. Okay. Oh. Okay. If I now say name this house, and I'll say I'm looking for the name of the car. The car that's name. Okay. So I can now go ahead and say car that's consular, car that's name. I can add Russia house. Name. Okay, the name. Okay, so let me go ahead. We are trying to look at the structuring. Now, I have a name, I have a class, I have a name, a class, a model, a tire, and these are the names I highlighted here. Okay. Now, let's get this class. Okay. I will explain what happened here. I think class is a reserved object keyword. So I am not supposed to use class here. I'm not supposed to use class. Let me see. Yeah, that's why. Our class. And we call end. Okay. Okay, so what we basically did here was, instead of doing what we did here, what happened here, we now outlined all these names because we know the keys of this object. We just highlighted them and used this square bracket. This square bracket does this what is called destructuring. So what it just did was I broke down this the bits, the properties of this car. I broke them down, and I at the same time, after breaking them down, I broke them down and I saved it to a variable name. So I can now go ahead and access the name, the car class, the model, the tire, without necessarily having to save it one by one. So this thing we did here is called destructuring. It's called destructuring. What we did there is called destructuring. And the same thing applies for objects. You can still do the same thing. You can still do the same thing for arrays. But in arrays, let me just briefly, since we didn't touch it when we're doing arrays. In arrays, the way we do the structure in arrays is let me just write a new array and let's say calls what can I call it now? City array. And then I have an array. I have something called city somewhere up. City array. Let me call it let me say so I have this array called city array. For this is how we destructure for object. Now for arrays, how do we destructure? We go like this. In arrays, you can save it to any constant name. You can save it to any constant name while destructuring an array. So since I have 1, 2, 3 variables here, I can save it to, let me say, let me call it down. Time, say city array. Let's get. I'll go ahead and console log. London. The first one. I have 3 times town 1, town 2, and town 3. So since I have city array, so if I go ahead and say this is 1. So similar thing to the object array. The only difference is that in similar to destructuring the object, but the only difference is that when you are destructuring an array, you have to now call it a constant. The constant can be any variable at all. So what we're simply doing is that we're collecting the individual elements of this array and saving it in a constant called town1. But here we are doing the same thing. We are picking the name. You can actually change the name in this case. All you need to do is to put, let me say here, say name1 equals name. So this should work. Then, which means here I will now have name1, not name again. So something like that. Yeah. You can actually change this. And you can assign it in variable. So I'll find out. I'll find out. But I know you can assign it to variable. Just let's go on so it doesn't. So in array, you assign a variable and just call the array itself. In this case, you destructure it by calling the keys. So these are the keys. The keys will not form new constant relation to access them. So that is what destructuring basically does. Why I'm going through this is that these are things that I'll be using as time goes on. I will understand them better. So you can just collect an array instead of going ahead and getting the individual components on an object. You can go ahead and get everything at once and now use it wherever you want to use in the app. All right. Having said that, I want to move on to 2 more object methods before we conclude on objects. 2 more object methods. 2 more object methods. Sorry, just 1 object method. One called the assign object method. The assign object method, what it basically does is it copies the values of an array of an object into another object. It copies an object into another. Let's say I have 2 objects. Let's say I have this object, car object, and I now have another object called, let me call it let me call it house, house. And I say okay, the same thing name. This time around the name becomes okay. And I can remove this. Yes. All right. So I have 2 objects here. Now, if I want to join these objects together, I'll go ahead and do this. I say const, everything in constant. I say objects, the first one is a car object. I say car dot assign sorry, assign object dot assign object dot assign. Like what is um just object and if I go ahead and control it's just full along anything. So my object to count this will give me car class, model, name, tire. So is there any one? I have a name, I have a car class, I have a model, I have a tire. No, it's not. It's not. The house object is not being. Okay, the house object is here. Oh, okay. So I have this combo house, this one. Okay. I use the same key, house name. House name. Okay. So I now have this one, I have this, I have this, I have this, I have this. Okay. So basically what I wanted to say was if you want to match two objects together, I'm trying to use object that are assigned, but I think I'm not getting something right. So let me just. One of the modern ways of matching this together is using this operator. This operator is called the spread operator. So what I simply did is I created a new object and I spread the other objects I want to match inside the new object I created. It can also be achieved with assign, but I think I'm getting a syntax wrong somewhere. I'm getting a syntax wrong somewhere. But most often, we just use the spread operator instead of going ahead to do assign. So if I want to match two objects together, I have a car object, which is up here. Okay, if I even hover around it, this is my car object, and this is my house object. So if I go ahead and spread it, this dot, dot, dot in front of it is called the spread operator. So the spread operator helps you to spread, as the name implies, to spread object inside a larger object. So when you spread it, you get your new object, which is object total 2, and your new object will now be comprising of the elements. As you saw when I was making a mistake, because I have two keys that are the same, name, you just picked one and you left the other one. Just pick one and left the other one. So here, everything is okay, everything is complete. I have a model. Okay, I also have a model here. I also have, okay, see, the same thing. So if I go ahead and change this to house model, house model, house model, house model, yeah, that's okay. House model. So you see displayed here. So this is basically how to join two objects together. Please and please, is there something else that you don't understand in this? I want to move on to other things that might be more complex than this. Go ahead and let me know, please. Are we clear on this? I need answers. I need feedback.
Yes.
Okay. So far, we are good to go. All right. No, we'll be talking about methods. Methods. You know, these methods are normally called. You just say, let me say, object.key, object.this, object. What is the origin of methods? Which is what we want to look into now. What are methods in JavaScript? Generally, these things you're seeing that we've been calling here dots, that we'll call them dots, we'll name something, that we'll put a bracket in front of them and either pass a value or something. What are these methods? Let me begin by explaining it this way. Let me create a person object, call it const. This object is called person. This object is called person, and this person has a name. Let me see, the name of this person is gifts. Okay, and this person has an age. This person's age is 21. Now, I now have another property inside here called greeting. Greeting. Now, this my greeting property is now a function. This my greeting property is now a function. Now define a function. Yes, you still remember how to define a function. Now define a function. I call it let's just console.log something. Console.log. So I have a person object. You know, I told you that in object you can pass strings, you can pass variables, you can pass an object in an object, you can be a property of an object. They also have functions that are properties of objects. In this case, this is a function. This is a function. Now, this function is a property of an object. This function is a property of an object. So remember, if I want to find out the name of this person called gift, I want to find out the name of this person called gift, what do I need to do? If I come here and say console.log and I call person.name, I'm expected to get gifts. Okay. If I do the same thing for age, I'm expected to get age. Now, if I come here now console log, I want to get the greeting. Maybe this person greeted somebody, or console.person.greeting. Just as I assessed others, I also want to assess this. As you can see, it's returning back console. It's returning back the function. It's returning back the value of the key I just called. But what I want is what is in that function, not the whole function. So I go ahead and put this here, and it will return back good day. Online, what? 509. What is it? Oh, 4. Yes. I've already consolidated it up. Okay. Okay. So in this case now, see what happened. I can access this person.name. Okay. To avoid confusion, let me save it in a variable. Const person name. Person name. But this is very important as I want to take my time to explain it. Person.name. Okay, I've assigned it to a variable. If I go ahead and console it, I'll say console.log person name. Okay, this is what I get. The same thing applies here. This is the greeting, and I want to save this greeting in a variable. I want to save this greeting in a variable. I said const person greeting. I go ahead and do this. Okay. Okay, that's just by the way I was just trying to find it. Now, I am calling person.name here. If I want to get this person's name, if I call person.name, I should be able to get this person's name, which is gift. Now, if I call person.greeting, I should be able to get, initially when I removed this, if I remove, oh, okay, I didn't have this. Okay, so this should. Is anybody seeing what I'm not getting right? Everyone sees. Okay. Okay, let's just continue. Can't find where the errors. Okay, so what I wanted to explain was in order to get this particular property of this object, this particular property. Remember that this property is a function. It's a function. Before I included this opening and closing bracket, it was console log, it was giving us the whole function. Now, if I want to get what is contained in the function, I have to now pass in this. I have to pass in this. If you remember, when we were doing push for array, we'll do the array name dot push. We'll now put this opening and closing brackets. You understand? And I was calling it a method. So we formed our own method. This is our own method. This is our own method, person method. And this person method has this is our own method. Sorry, we have an object which has a greeting method. So methods are functions. Now, when the value of, let me define it properly. When the value of when the value property of an object is a function, that property is called a method. So the greeting in this case is a method. The greeting in this case is a method. I'll go again. Whenever the value property of an object is a function, that property is called a method in JavaScript. If you understand this, it will help you a lot to understand how JavaScript works. That was why when we say array method, see what happens behind the scene. This is what JavaScript does for us. JavaScript has a method. JavaScript has an object called, a big object called array. Array. This is what the object is embedded in JavaScript. Now, inside this array method, JavaScript now has, inside this array object, sorry, JavaScript now has this push. This push now has a function. This push now has a function that does something. Maybe a logic will be defined here. Definitely, let me just, a logic will be defined there telling you to do something. Define your logic here. Logic defined. Now, see those array methods you're working with. Each time you create a new array, what you're simply doing, you're creating something called instance. Each time you create a new array using const, anyhow you create it, if you like, use the word new or just create it using an array const. Maybe call, like when I created this, where is the array I created? Okay, where is the array I created? I created this array. Yeah. I created this array. So each time you create a new array in JavaScript, what you're simply doing, you're simply creating like a child of the bigger array. You're simply creating like a child of the bigger array. So this city array, JavaScript now, since I'm using this curly brace, JavaScript knows an array. So what JavaScript simply does is it will now collect this my array I've created and put inside that general array methods that JavaScript has behind the scene. So that is why if I now call city array.push, Dot push means I am now calling a method inside that bigger array object. Because since my city array is a child of my bigger, is a child of this big object. So any method defined inside the parent object, the child object can also call from that method. Please try and understand these things. If it's too complicated, I will pause here for now. But what I want you to understand is, just as we've been calling methods, this is what methods are. We've defined our own private method. This is a greeting method for the person object. Just as we have a push method for the array object. A push method for the array object. A push method that can be used for arrays. Everything you see in JavaScript, whether it's called array or, that's why, you know, when we started the data types, I told you that array is a part of objects, but it's treated separately because it's quite huge. So this thing we just did, we just created our own greeting method for this person object. So each time you hear about method, this is how JavaScript methods are created behind the scene. Please, is this clear? If it's not clear, tell me it's not clear. I understand if it's this one is getting complicated. Just let me know. Is it clear? Hello? I need a response, please.
It's clear, sir.
Okay, go ahead. It's clear?
Yeah, it is.
So, where you sounded, something is not clear.
It's okay, just that we'll have to watch the video later, like
Okay.
really
Okay,
internalize it.
But what I simply want you to take home in this is, they might ask you a question saying, what are methods? The answer is simple. Methods are, in JavaScript, methods are functions that are defined inside an object, or functions that are used as the values, that are used as value property in an object. JavaScript method. So even if you don't understand how it works behind the scene, just understand it for now, that this is what method is, and you'll be good to go. And I promise you, as time goes on, you'll get it clearer. So having said that, I wanted to lay that foundation before we go to more complex things, what the method is and what it does. Then there's another thing I also like us to look at, please. The this keyword. The this keyword. It's called the this keyword. This keyword. In JavaScript, there's something called the this keyword. It's used, you encounter it in so many cases. So let me go ahead and explain how it works. Now, I want to say, let's say I want to say good day gifts. You know that gift is defined as a name here. So if I want to go ahead and say good day gift, I can simply say, let me use template literal so that I can, or I can simply say good day. Let me call gift name. I say, go ahead and define gifts. I say, so 9481. Right, so good day. Yeah. Remember that gift is in the person object. Okay, the person. Okay, so you see, I'm now having good day gifts. Person.name. So I'm calling a property that is defined inside the same object. Inside the same object. Now, what this keyword does is, instead of me now writing good day person.name, I can replace this person with the this keyword. If I replace this with the this keyword, JavaScript understands that I'm referencing the objects where the function is being defined. I'm referencing this person object because this is where this function, greeting function, is being defined. So this keyword is referencing the parent object that is holding the function. So I can go ahead and call this dot name, this dot age. So I can go ahead and now reference it inside this keyword. So that's what this is. If I do this dot the greeting, it will just return the function to me. So that is what the this keyword does. So the this keyword references the object. It references the object where the function that is calling the this keyword is being defined. Hope my argument does not confuse you. The this keyword in JavaScript references the parent object where the function that is calling this keyword is being defined. In this case, the function calling it is creative, is you can call it method or function. The function calling it is this function, which is a method now because it is now in an object and it is defined inside this person's object. So this keyword, this here is equal to person. Just take it like that. This here equal to person. So instead of going to say person.name, I can just say this.name. And if I go ahead and say this here, it will give me the whole object itself. So if I go ahead and say this, it will give me the whole object. So it's giving me the whole object itself. It's an object. So I hope we've understood these basic points, and having understood that, let's move to more exciting things today. These are little things you have to understand in JavaScript to make it easier and to make it fun to work with JavaScript. All right. So before the time winds up today, I would like to introduce DOM manipulation. I know that's what we've been waiting for. DOM manipulation. DOM manipulation. DOM manipulation. Okay. So DOM manipulation simply means, as the name implies, manipulating. Manipulating means changing, interfering with something. Like I have a hello world here, and let's say I want, when a user clicks a button, I want it to change to my name is this instead of hello world, or write more things. In the normal CSS and HTML that we did, we can write everything here. But the essence of JavaScript is, I don't have anything inside here now. It's empty. And I want to use JavaScript to now write to my DOM. When I'm DOM, the full meaning of DOM is, it means document object model. This word DOM, it's documents object model. That is what DOM means. So DOM is simply the documents where you write this just in the layman explanation. This is your DOM. This here is your DOM. That is your DOM. So your document object model, it's like it's like what you use to manipulate the HTML elements on your browser. How do you manipulate HTML elements in your browser? I've gone ahead to remove the hello world you typed here before. That's why you don't say anything. Now, in the case of DOM, DOM now has the ability to make you manipulate what is written here, called document object model. But please note that it is an API. I know you're hearing API for the first time. I will just explain what API means briefly. API, the full meaning of API means application programming interface. What does API do? You know, in web application, we have the front end and we have the back end. The back end, after they finish building their back end, you build your own front end. In order for the back end to communicate to the front end, you have the API does that works. This is how somebody explained the concept of API. The whole application is like when a cafe, a place they sell food, a cafe where they sell food. Now, you walk into the streets and you see a signage saying glamour restaurants written there. You walk into glamour restaurants and you want to order for food. You sit down at the table. A waiter comes to you and says, "What do you want, please?" You say, I want what is it called? I want chicken and jollof rice. Now the waiter takes your order, goes behind the scene to people that you don't see, you don't know them, you've not met them, they are not even, you don't know them, and the waiter goes there drops this order with them, collects food from them, and bring back and serves you this delicious meal. Now, those guys that are in the kitchen working, you don't see them when you get to the restaurant, but they make the food available for you to eat. Now, in web application, we describe it this way. The guys working behind the scene in the kitchen are called the back-end guys. Why? The receptionist that attends to you, the signage you're seeing in front of the restaurant, the tables you're seeing, the beautiful environment you're seeing, it's called the front end. Note that if you see the restaurant and you enter and the place is looking tattered, messy, you will not enter the restaurant. So it's in as much as the food you're eating, in fact, you don't even want to sit down to eat the food. Am I right? So in as much as the food you're eating is important, the place you're eating the food is also important. What makes you want to eat the food is because the front end looks very appealing to you. Everything is well arranged. Now, the API is that waiter, because that is the intermediary between you and the people behind. You tell the waiter what you want, the waiter goes, brings it, and gives to you. So that is a simple explanation of the whole web structure, the front end, the API, and the back end. The API is the link between the back end and the front end. Is this explanation clear? Hello, is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So the DOM, the document object model, is like something behind the scene that JavaScript has. Now it now has an API that we can use in now collecting information depending on the message you send to it. So document object model is an API that is used to manipulate the HTML elements in your web application, as simple as it gets. Then what is documents? Documents is this whole page is your document. We call it documents. This whole page is your document. I have a picture that depicts very well how this is explained. Let me open it. I downloaded it from the site and it looks very nice. So let me see. Okay, so we want to go ahead and dissect different components of your document. I'm trying to rush this session, just give you a brief introduction before the time winds down. Now, this is your HTML element, the one you've seen above, HTML. Now, this is your document. What you're seeing on your browser is hello DOM. That is what, just as I have hello word in the one I just left. Now, this is your document. The whole of this is called a document. The whole of this is your document. And this your documents. Document is simply an arrangement of elements, but I don't want to call them elements because not all of them are elements. Now, these individual components that make up these documents are called nodes. N-O-D-E-S. They are called nodes. N-O-D-E-S. Documents are made up of nodes. You can call them hierarchy of nodes. Hierarchy of nodes. Okay. So as you can see, it's an hierarchy here. You have the main document, which is everything. Then you now have HTML. You have the head. You have the title. Just like that, like that. So please, if the time winds down, the class has ended. I just want you to get these basics so that when we come from next time, we hit it full blast. So this is your object. The whole of this thing you're seeing is your object. And this object consists of different nodes. So I want to pause here today and hope you understood something. At least you know how the back end, the front end interface with each other. I want to pause here today. All right. And I want to go and read up this thing on DOM, get some ideas, and as we come next week, we go into it full blast. And trust me, it's an interesting subject. And within the week, if you have questions, please you can ask me. I know I can be very busy at times, but I will try my best to answer the questions. All right. Thank you, guys. See you next week.